As a young child, being outside in nature was part of my life. My family spent the days rock climbing, horse riding, hiking, and camping. For me, being in nature, communing with the trees and the earth, and feeling everything around me is just essential to my health and well-being and my spirit. So when my husband suggested going on a hunting and camping trip about 4 hours northwest of us in a pine forest filled with misty glades, I couldn't help but be absolutely overwhelmed with excitement. Moss hung like a thick carpet on the pines, and wildflowers dotted the meadows and the roadsides. After setting up camp, we took the kids for a walk to explore the area. And that's when we made a surprising discovery. By the edge of a reed-filled dam in an old apple tree, we discovered a small and very cold swarm of bees. They appear to have swarmed very recently, and to look at, we didn't think they would survive the icy winters that occur up in the pines here. We continued our walk, but we resolved to come back in a few days' time and see if the swarm was still there or if they had moved on. As the day progressed, more of our friends arrived, and those with permits and bookings headed off for an afternoon hunt. For myself, I had decided that I wanted to try making pine needle tea. I'd done my research before arriving, and I knew that the radiata pines that grew in the area were safe to drink in a tea. I harvested a small handful from the tip of a plant, and then taking them over, I boiled them in a saucepan of water until the pine needles had lost some of their colour. Adding in a spoonful of honey gave this brew a sweet and pleasantly piney taste. I was surprised to find I actually really enjoyed this drink and definitely would like to make some more in the future. It also has a huge range of health benefits, so I think it's a fantastic one to add to the repertoire. The remainder of the afternoon was spent colouring in, exploring some more, relaxing and chatting to our friends around the fire. As the afternoon turned towards the evening, our hunting party returned and told us that they'd brought down a beautiful fallow deer stag. So I wanted to take a moment to cut in here and just talk about why we hunt and why we grow our own meat for consumption. I think it's a very important discussion to have, because a lot of people just don't understand why and how we could eat animals that we've raised or go out and hunt them. For us, being able to grow our own meat at our own house, knowing that we're giving them the best life that we can and they're getting fed good quality food. All of our animals are free range, so they live every day on our property, scratching in the dirt for worms and just being themselves. They get to live their life as their species, really, as opposed to a lot of places that have them in small cages or corrals. We do still buy meat from Woolies and Coles and other shops. Speaking of the sheep, that's them running away in the background. We do still buy some of our meat from Woolies and Coles, but we're drastically trying to reduce how much that is. And eventually we would like to get to the point where we can be completely self-sufficient with our meat sources. For us, hunting is an ethical way to get meat that is sustainable. The deer that we're hunting in this particular case, they are a pest in this area, and they actually do a huge amount of damage to the land that they're on. we give the animals as quick and clean a death as we can. And I like to think that we respect the animal as much as we can by using every part of it. There's so many ways that we could justify what we're doing and why we're doing it. But to be honest, on the deepest level, I think I gain a very spiritual connection
to the land when I'm out hunting in the bush or even out walking in the bush.
That's what hunting mostly is walking around and observing nature and taking it all in and feeling those connections to the land. And to me, that's a really important thing. I feel like a lot of people don't have that anymore. And it's something I want my children to grow up and understand. Whether they hunt with it or not, they can take a camera out and, hunt animals with a camera. I think that's just as beautiful. When we hunt, we are not hunting for trophies. We are hunting for meat, and we use every piece of the animal that we are able to. The thing I really liked about this particular group that we were out with for this trip is that everyone took some of the meat home and everyone did different things with it. So one of the girls made venison and kidney pies, which I'm not a big fan of kidneys, so I'm really excited that she got to use the kidneys in a way that we're basically being respectful to the animal by using as much of it as we can. Currently in our dehydrator, our piece of meat is being turned into biltong jerky. The hide got cleaned and salted and has now been taken home and is being prepared to be used for other things, which I love the idea that you can take an animal home and utilize it in so many different ways in your everyday life. I think that's really, really important for our connection to nature. So it's been really, really cool to see what different people do with what they have and how they use the different cuts of the meat. I believe that this is how we can show our respect and honour this animal who has died for us and for our sustenance. I think that's a really important thing. Because I'm trying to film stuff.
Over there?
Right here.
Why?
Anyway, that's enough about my personal views. The next morning when we woke up, there was such a beautiful atmosphere in the pine forest. A thick mist obscured the land around us, leaving only the things that were immediately in front of you visible.
I adore the startling contrasts of the mist with its muted tones, and then some of the trees here just absolutely pop with the colour in the mist. It's really incredible. You get these beautiful reds and rich greens, and then everything else is just opaque, white, and vanishing into the distance. It's absolutely spectacular.
As the mist cleared and the sun came out over our last day of camping, we went for a walk to see if the bees were still there. Unsurprisingly, the swarm was still in the exact same spot, and if anything, I think they looked worse than before. So we backed the ute up and carefully trimmed around the area to see if we could get close enough to the swarm. Remarkably, we were able to clear all the branches around the swarm without any issues at all. We carefully placed a pillowcase over the swarm and the branch that they were on and sealed it with a cable tie before removing them very gently into a hessian sack. Not wanting the bees to be in the bag for too long, we said our goodbyes to our friends and to the area and headed home.
I wanted to take another quick moment to discuss bees. Can you stop shuffling around, mister? My dog's sitting next to me. We are currently in a purple zone, and we had the DPI out the other day to check our hive. We did speak to the DPI a couple of weeks ago when they were coming to inspect our hives. We are thankfully free of varroa. I'm so sorry to anyone whose hives have been affected. Now, they told us that whilst we can't move our hives out of our property, we can take swarms or queen bees from a blue zone into our purple zone. So we have done our due diligence there, because we very much don't want varroa being spread. It is catastrophic to our bee industry in Australia. Now, the swarm that we found was very small and very cold, and it had only just swarmed. They had no structure in there. I don't think they would have made it through the winter. I think it would have very much died. So we gathered up that swarm and brought it in, and it's now living very, very contentedly in our bee box. Luckily we had a spare box at home. So it's been moved into that, and they seem to be thriving. So I'm really excited about that. We have another beehive on our property already. So we took some of the frames with larvae in them and some structure. They won't accept adult bees, but they will accept larvae as their own. So we've filled up their little nest with a few of those frames. They seem to have settled in really nicely, which is very encouraging, and I really hope that this hive does well.
The hive that they're currently in does have some water damage on it, so we are setting up this new one for them. As soon as we got home from our trip, my husband grabbed his suit and took the bees down to their new hive and very gently shook them out into the new hive box. It's been about 2 weeks since we have moved them into their new home, and they seem to have settled in perfectly. I've been going down every day to check on them, and they seem to be bringing in lots of pollen. We'll open up the hive in another week to check on everyone in there, but I have very high hopes for this little hive. If you enjoyed following along our camping trip, then I would absolutely love if you would like, subscribe and share. Thank you!